welcome to a video I'm pretty sure I said I was thinking of making like 2 years ago, but here I am, finally making it. Let's make 18th century yummy lavender soap. But before we dive in, I want to disclaim, in no uncertain terms, it just smells delicious and is not for human consumption. I know that this happened.
So you didn't put any of that yummy lavender soap in there?
It's not a care package.
But do you really think that absolute ray of sunshine had hair that good and did not know the correct use of soap? For the last time, please do not eat soap. If you want to know more about the history of eating soap, and yes, I'm loath to inform you that there is a history of eating soap, I've got a video that's floating around my face somewhere around here for you that's nominally a very good recipe for little cakes, but also dives into some of the history of soap as medicine, which is legit a thing that happened. I mean, listen, modern medicine is not perfect, but if there's one thing that's been well established by now, it's that you should not eat soap. Please do not do it. If you want to eat something with lavender in it, please consider my recipe for lemon lavender madeleines in the aforementioned video, which is a really good recipe I cannot recommend highly enough. Now that that's out of the way, let's define what sort of soap we're making today. And in order to do that, let's start with a quick overview of what soap would have looked like in the 18th century. In a little pre-segment I like to call our Flag Means Facts, Chapter 1, an introduction to soap. Soap in the 18th century was, it turns out, really not that different to the soap that we use today. Obviously, we have some neat little innovations, like those Japanese bottles of hand soap that dispenses a perfect little cat paw of foam into your palm. But ultimately, soap was, and still is, made by emulsifying together some kind of oil or fat and a highly basic substance known as lye, or sodium hydroxide if you want to be multisyllabic about it. Historically, the soap making process would have been done by placing these ingredients over a fire and mixing and stirring and agitating them together for quite a while to create an emulsion. These substances interact with each other in a process called saponification, wherein the greasy properties of the fat and the caustic properties of the lye are magically transformed into the frothy, cleansing, safe properties of soap. In the 18th century, the fats might have been an animal fat like tallow, or a plant-based oil like olive oil, especially if you were fancy. Hard soap, as it was known at the time, was the kind of soap that came in bars and looks a lot like the kinds of basic bar soap we still use today. This was usually done by adding salt to the base soap mixture, which would help the soap to harden. There was also soft soap. This had like a squidgy gel-like texture and was generally a less expensive choice as an all-purpose cleaner of people, places, and things. But today, we'll be making some fine wash balls, which use a base of hard olive oil soap, which was the preferred choice for washing one's person if such a choice was available. It was also where some creative license comes in with regard to all of the different scents and lovely fragrances and botanicals and other beneficial ingredients one might have added to their self-care experience. For today's example, I'm keeping it simple and really just leaning into the lovely fragrance of lavender. Oh, pretzels, let me get my specs on. For this recipe, you will need plain olive oil soap, floral water. In this case, we're using lavender, though you could use plain old water if it's what you've got. And optionally, some botanicals and some lavender oil as a treat. Every recipe I've encountered seems to go about it in slightly different ways, but with basically the same aims and results. That is taking a finished soap, grating or grinding it down into tiddly little bits, and then remoistening and softening the little bits to form a workable paste of sorts, which will be shaping into little soap spheres with the addition of some lovely, lovely smells. Hopefully. Depending on how I'm about to get on. And just how are we getting on over there? My kitchen self. So this is a plain olive oil soap. I did not make this myself. I bought it off of a shop on Etsy that sells handmade soaps. There is nothing in this soap bar except for olive oil, lye, and salt. And it has made this beautiful little soap. It has that nice sort of like, this smells like just plain soap smell. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It just has that slightly clean, soapy smell to it, but not perfumed in any way. So that is perfect for us today. I've seen it recommended to just shave the soap using, I guess, like a paring knife or something, or to mortar and pestle the soap down. I honestly don't know how well this soap in particular would mortar and pestle. I mean, like, you could try, but I feel like you just kind of squish it. But also, olive oil makes a very, very hard soap. This is incredibly hard bar of soap. It's not squishy. There's no real like give to it. So I have to imagine it would take a lot of elbow grease to get this to mortar and pestle down. And in fact, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to grate this, but I'm just going to give it a go and see what happens, I guess. So I'm putting my scale on because I do want to try and do things fairly precisely here. Okay, actually, this grates like cheese. And I'm actually finding that a lot of it is just kind of crumbling into little bits anyway. But again, I'm not sure if the bigger flakes are better or smaller flakes would be better. But I guess we'll soon find... Oh, this is actually... You know what? This is actually really satisfying to grate. Okay, so I've shaved down my soap. I'm going to see if... Is there any... Oh, and the inside of the grater is quite clean. Clean. Surprising. But these are such a satisfying texture to just like run your hand through. Like, they feel really good. I was going to try the finer end of the grater as well, but actually I really don't think I need to, because a lot of this is crumbled down into, you can see it sticking to my fingies here. There are some larger curls, but a lot of it has just kind of crumbled down into dust. I'm assuming probably just because this is such a hard soap bar. So this is the mixture that I'm going to go with, and we don't really have measurements for the next bits, so... Viewers with some knowledge of soap making may notice that a lot of the methodology for making wash balls is actually pretty similar to something many soap makers do to this day, and that's rebatching. Sometimes you might have a batch of soap that for whatever reason you can't or don't want to use in its current form. Maybe you just prefer the appearance and texture of rebatched soap. So you shred it down and apply a little heat and water to bring it back together into a workable paste, which can be remolded into a new loaf of soap. In his book, The Laboratory, or School of Arts, the author Godfrey Smith details a method of making wash balls that involves shaving down bars of soap, placing them in a glazed pipkin in this case with some rose water, adding aromatics as you please, and stirring it over the heat until it forms a moldable paste. The method varies from recipe to recipe. Sometimes the soap shavings sit in the sun for 40 days. Others in a box above the oven for an unspecified period of time. Others not at all. Since I have neither a sunny spot nor a space above the oven for easy drying, and I have an upload schedule to think about, believe it or not, I'm taking the simplest of the recipes and adapting them here, and I guess we'll see if they still make soap. Here's a recipe, for instance, for a fine scented wash ball from The Toilet of Flora, originally published in 1772 by Pierre-Joseph Bucqueuse. Because, do you really think I was going to make an entire video about bathing and beauty in the 18th century and not mention one of the most famous repositories of recipes for lotions, potions, remedies, and cosmetics of the period? There's even a recipe for distilling your own lavender oil, which is described, and I quote, as particularly serviceable in vaporish and hysteric disorders. And if that isn't basically a fancy rewording of like my total de-stress aromatherapy roll-on that I got from like the health food store, I don't know what is. Anyways, here's Monsieur Bucqueuse's method. I probably shouldn't have taken my glasses off because they need thinking. A faint-scented wash ball. Take of the best white soap, half a pound, and shave it into thin slices with knife. Then take 2 ounces and half of Florentine orris, 3/4 of an ounce of calamus aromaticus, and the same quantity of elderflowers, of cloves, and dried rose leaves, each half an ounce, coriander seeds, lavender, and bay leaves, of each a dram, with 3 drams of storax. I think it's dram and not drachm, but he's spelled it drachm, so correct me if I'm wrong. Reduce the whole to a fine powder, which knead into a paste with the soap, adding a few grains of musk or ambergris. When you make this paste into wash balls, soften it with a little oil of almonds to render the composition more lenient. Too much cannot be said in favor of this wash ball with regard to its cleansing and cosmetic property. One of the things I like about these recipes is that they allow for a significant amount of artistry, where I suppose one could take the fragrant suggestions of one recipe and tailor those pleasant smells to one's preferences. Can't get me orris root? Not a fan of storax? No biggie. Why not grind up some extra rosebuds instead? A little smoky vetiver, an undercurrent of myrrh, a generous sprinkle of oak moss, my favorite. Today, in the interest of really wanting to make yummy lavender soap specifically, I'm sticking with a single tried and true fragrance note, which was likewise enjoyed in the period. Lavender. All the ingredients I'm using were pretty easy to find, actually. You could use any unscented soap you happen to prefer, really, and it's pretty easy and not too expensive to find lavender water and lavender flowers. Do note that if you are using a fragrance oil in your soap, whether that's essential oil, fragrance oil, whatever, be sure to weigh up your soap and your fragrance, and be mindful that a little goes a long way when it comes to smells. In this case, we're using no more than enough lavender oil to make up 1% of the overall weight here. Essential oil can cause irritation at higher quantities, and lavender certainly projects enough of a fragrance that I absolutely did not need more than this. Trust me. There are plenty of resources online to help you determine what the safe and effective percentages of any given good smell ingredients you can use if you decide to try this at home. With that being said, it's also worth acknowledging that there are some methods and ingredients used historically that we really shouldn't be replicating because we have more information about ingredient safety than we did a few hundred years ago. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really interested in knowingly jeopardizing my health in the name of making a nifty little soap project. And that's why I'm not using Hannah Glass's recipe for white almond wash balls from The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy, because she uses half an ounce of white lead, which subsequent research has shown is really bad for you, it turns out. The good news is that she has several other recipes that just use nice, safe ingredients like rose water and pleasant botanical oils like thyme, and ambergris, which is incredibly expensive, illegal in some countries, and also a kind of ocean marinated whale barf. I'll pass. Also, don't put cinnamon in your soap. Like, it sounds like it would be fine and it smells nice, but it's actually quite a potent irritant if you rub it all over your skin and can cause a significant amount of irritation. If you do want a cinnamon scented soap, there are loads of inexpensive, skin-safe, soap-safe cinnamon fragrance oils that will make your shower smell like walking into a hobbycraft anytime between November and New Year's. Where was I? Oh yeah, let's actually make the soap. Sorry about that. So I'm weighing this out. I know exactly how much I need. And actually, I probably could add a little bit more than this, but I'm deciding to stop it here because, man, it smells really strong, and that's actually a reasonable amount, so I think that'll be enough. First of all, I'm just going to take my fragrance. In this case, I am just using the lavender oil. I'm just going to go ahead and dribble that in to my soap. Shake, shake, shake. Get as much of that out as I can. And honestly, I think I'm just gonna hand whisk this. I think this would be a good time to just use the hands. And I just want to kind of distribute that oil throughout. Like so. This apparently is something that you really kind of can only do by feel. I have this lavender water. Other brands are available. This is one that was easily gettable to me, and it smells really, really nice. So I'm using lavender flower water for this lavender soap, which stands to reason. And I'm just going to add like a couple drops. And I'm just going to stir that in. And I'm just going to keep dripping and stirring and dripping and stirring until we have something that feels like a dough that could come together. You want it to not be too wet because obviously if your soap gets too wet, it's just going to become suds. And so I'm just going to, I feel like, okay, I could compress this at this point, but I do want to add, I think, a little bit more just to make sure. So that was like 5 little squirts. And that's feeling, okay, this is now starting to feel like it has a bit more of a a doughy texture. So you can see when I squeeze it together with my fingers, it is holding together. This really feels a lot like the process of making pie dough, actually, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to start kind of squidging it together here. So I'm just going to pick up what feels like, I don't know, sort of like a walnut-sized amount, I guess, and I'm just going to start squeezing it together between my hands and trying to form a nice little round ball if I can. So I'm just kind of squeezing it in my palms to try and form a nice little ball shape. I feel like that's probably a little on the small side, and it looks a little lumpy and a little sad, but bear in mind, this is baby's first soap making. So we're not going to be able to expect miracles. This one's probably a little bit small, but honestly, I think that's kind of cute. So I might just kind of go with it. It's okay if they're not 100% all the exact same size. I'm not weighing these out. This doesn't need to be scientific. These are just for fun. I can't sell these even if I wanted to, so this is just for my own amusement and entertainment, and possibly giving as gifts to friends who think it would be neat to have 18th century soap. I know I will. This will need to sit and cure for a week when we're done, so I'm not going to be able to test them out today, though I will wash my hands and report back. Oh boy. You know what this looks like? This looks like a cursed cauliflower floret. But a cursed cauliflower floret that actually smells pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Honestly, that's all right with me. I can see that this is a very efficient way of getting good smells into your soap. Certainly. There we go. Honestly, this is super easy to do. I mean, there's not really much point to it in this day and age because we can just buy soap that's already been scented super easily. But it's really fun and interesting seeing a very basic way of how they might have made nicer soaps back in the day. Obviously, you can also add colors. The range of different ingredients that they use to fragrance them includes a lot of stuff that smells really, really good. But for now, we have our balls, and we have a very messy countertop because I've been busy making them. I do feel like I made these a little too small, but that's what it is. I'm gonna wash my hands now. Now, I didn't include these inside the soap because while they look beautiful and that sort of lovely muted purple shade here, they do have a tendency to oxidize and turn brown in things like soap. I don't know if that would happen with the type of soap that we're using today, but I also really didn't want to take that risk and end up having soap that looks like it's got that looks like a mouse pooped in it or something. So I want to try and just very carefully, very artistically put some of these on top of, I'm just going to do it on one, I think. I'm not going to do it on all of them in case it looks bad and stupid, but I'm just going to very artfully attempt to play. Man, it was really hard to pick up just one of these. I feel like I should have gotten some little tweezers or something to do this, but hopefully it'll still look cute when it's done. I'm very hopeful. I'm losing some of that hope. Wow. Oh, isn't that pretty? It looks super bad. I placed those really badly, but I wanted to do it when it was fresh, to make sure that they will stick, because it is definitely, the soap is still a little bit sticky on the outside, so this is the perfect time to try and place things like this. But oh, this isn't doing it for me, I don't think. This is not great. Oh no. Maybe I should save using the actual lavender flowers for when I make madeleines. Actually, okay, no, actually. Now I have a little piece of leaf or stalk here, so I think what I might do is just pop that, if I can kind of stick that down the middle so it looks like a little stalk of lavender flowers. Oh my god, okay, I brought it back. I actually think that is it looks very rustic, and I'm genuinely not sure how well these flowers, I'm pressing these in as hard as I can. I have no idea how well these flowers are going to stick, but I actually think that looks pretty darn cute. I'm happy with that. So my little soaps plus the one decoration are going to go rest and then we're going to come back and take another look at them. So time to go night-night. And now it's time to send these to go take a nap for probably a few days to ensure they've fully dried and hardened back down again, which means we've got just enough time for a segment that I am of course calling Our Flag Means Facts. Chapter 2, A Very Brief History of Getting Clean. Listen, I know I'm not the first person to dispel the myth that everyone was real stinky back in ye olden days, but just in case anyone missed it, and it bears repeating, people were not all real stinky and unwashed and smelly back in ye olden days. While it is true that modern showers and plumbing and boilers in every house are fairly modern innovations, that doesn't mean that people were just walking around in clouds of their own personal dust and filth smelling like stinky boo-boo garbage back in the day. It's just more likely that instead of taking a long, hot, luxurious immersion bath with a glittery bath bomb, you'd be more likely to wash with a linen cloth and a basin of water. And some soap. In fact, in most bedrooms, one would find a jug for water and a basin for washing. It's easy to take for granted in our world of relatively modern things like boilers and indoor plumbing that easy access to running water that you can just change the temperature of with the flick of a tap is pretty recent in the grand scheme of things. It's really good.
Hello everyone. Editing Sammy here to say I cannot believe I forgot to mention spa towns, which were very on trend in the period. You've probably heard of English towns with names like Leamington Spa, Cheltenham Spa, Bath Spa, which literally also has Bath in the name. Hopefully you're seeing some scenic B-roll of the city of Bath as I speak. And that was a very cool place to go and, take various therapeutic treatments with the delicious and delightful and good for you thermal waters of the area. And it was very cool to do that. If you didn't have the time or the money to travel to one of these spa towns, it was also really popular in the period? Just going for like a dip in a river, just going for a little paddle, having a little splash about in the river. It's a beautiful day, the sun's out, you're feeling a little bit sweaty, you just go for a little splash in the river. We've got paintings of this. I found a painting of this in my local museum. Hopefully you're seeing it now. I think there's something really appealing about the narrative that things were so much different and in some ways so much worse in like extreme and unbelievable and oh my god, can you believe that people used to do that kind of ways when talking about history, especially everyday history, which is, the boring stuff. But maybe I'm just boring, but I think it's really interesting to dig into these everyday things and find, sort of what the differences are, but where all of the similarities lie and how a lot of these things, to be perfectly honest, aren't that different. Like soap. Soap is pretty much the exact same as it was several hundred years ago. It's just fine. It kind of feeds into this look how awesome we are now narrative. Making us feel very advanced compared to our ancestors, to say things like, oh, look at, they were all stinky and that's really stupid back then. But like, that, I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's correct. To be honest, we have a lot more in common with our 18th century ancestors than we have in difference in those ways. But maybe I'm just boring, I don't know.
It was a lot harder to do a personal-sized, full immersion, sit-down, hot soak most of the time for most people for most of history. Even if you were fancy enough to have your own private well and therefore didn't need to transport the huge amounts of water from said well any distance to your home, you still probably wanted to heat the water, and that whole thing was kind of a faff compared to now. And that's if you were fancy. And indeed, there was also some belief that baths left one more susceptible to getting sick. They may not have understood why, but I'm sure this belief was not formed in a vacuum, even if we think it sounds silly now. At the time, they might have been noticing that the state of being cold, for instance, gives people more runny noses, which is a known phenomenon because it happens to me every time I step outside my house in the winter. But to think that this meant that everybody was all stinky smelly really fails to take into account just how clean you can get, with giving yourself a really good scrub down with a slightly exfoliant linen cloth and a basin of fresh water and soap, which was readily available by the literal barrelful if you had such a mighty need. And if it wasn't, you could conceivably make it yourself if you had access to wood ash and some kind of fat, one of which is readily available literally for free all around you because it comes from trees, and the other is a byproduct of eating meat, which most people were doing at least some of the time. Because soap is a super old invention. People have always liked to be clean, and people have always wanted to smell nice. It makes you feel good, and it's always made you feel good. And in addition to cleansing the epidermis directly, undergarments like linen shirts and shifts would have been worn by everyone, regardless of social status, as a basic undergarment. And these were washed with soap constantly. And because of linen's excellent ability to absorb sweat and excess oils and dirt and other gubbins from the body, to dry quickly, and to inhibit bacterial growth, which is what makes your sweat stinky, it was honestly a really good choice as the standard skin-facing clothing layer, because it genuinely helps you stay less dirty for longer. So even if a warm, hours-long, full-body soak was inaccessible to most people, and perhaps not the norm as a practice of cleansing, people were always finding ways to be clean. Also, that hair powder that was fashionable in the period, that's dry shampoo. It's literally just what dry shampoo is. You can buy dry shampoo at supermarkets and pharmacies to this very day. It helps kick out the dirt and degrease your hair, as anyone who's ever used a dry shampoo will know. And honestly, at least the 18th century didn't have the sensory onslaught of experiencing a blast of dozens of clashing fragrances commingling together and immediately setting off a blistering headache just because you made the mistake of walking past the entrance to Lush. And yeah, to be honest, a soap maker's manufactory probably wasn't the most salubrious of workplaces, considering that emulsifying such big drums of hot liquid would have been laborious and sweaty and taken an awfully long time in the days before we had electric stick blenders, which take like 30 seconds. And since many soaps were made from readily available animal fats like tallow and lard, these might not have smelled amazing in their pre-saponified forms. But olive oil soap was also an available choice in the period, perhaps a little bit more fancy than its meaty counterparts, but it's perfect for making these sweet little wash balls. Speaking of, I wonder if they're ready to be tested out.
So here's what they look like after they've had a chance to dry for a little bit. This is the one that I've done the little decoration on, and I think it honestly still looks really cute. I'm really glad that the lavender flowers still look nice and purple and have not turned like a horrible mouse poop brown or anything. This is a very rustic decoration, certainly, but I don't know. I liked it. Anyways, I don't want to use that one because it's too nice. Oh, also, these smell amazing. Extremely lavendery. If you like the sort of herbaceous, sweet floral scent of lavender, this is a really delightful soap. And it's just been sitting in a little container drying for the last little while, so I'm just gonna get this wet and see how it feels washing my hands. So I hope you enjoy seeing me wash my hands, I guess. Oh, first of all, very nice like slip. So that feels very, very pleasant. You can see it's definitely doing something. There's some lather happening. I'm getting some of that like generic soap smell as well beneath the lavender, but it's still definitely quite nice and lavendery. I just popped the soap down to one side. We're going to see if we can get some suds out of this. Let's have a look. Ooh, it's sudsy. Oh, it's sudsy. And what I will say is that it feels incredibly nice on your hands. It feels very creamy. It doesn't feel like it's drying my skin out a whole bunch, which I really appreciate as someone who does tend to have very dry hands. So I'm very happy about that. Okay, having rinsed it off, I will say my hands feel like clean, but they don't feel super dry. I don't know how much fragrance it's left on my skin, but it was definitely a very pleasantly fragrant sensory experience while washing my hands with it, which is really good. I'm going to go dry my hands and then report back as to how they feel in terms of dryness. Okay, so checking back in, my hands are definitely dry. They're definitely clean, but it's not like that tight dryness where you really feel like your skin has been sort of, all of the moisture has been just zapped out of it. They feel much nicer than that. It doesn't feel like I just moisturized my hands, but I wouldn't expect it to because I just cleansed them. But it's a very nice soft clean, I think. My hands still feel soft. I'm going to want to put some hand cream on later, but I don't feel like I immediately need to go and slather my hands in hand cream like some cleansers have been known to do for me. So that's really, really good. As for the fragrance, the actual experience of washing with it, you get that beautiful scent, and then it's mostly gone by the time your hands are dry, which is perfect for me. So I really like these. I cannot wait to experiment with some other scents, maybe add some colors and do other things with this soap making technique, because it's so easy and it's so much fun. And they honestly feel really, really good to use. I think it's a really nice hand soap to have. It would make a really nice gift, I think. Assuming your gift recipients are happy with something that kind of looks like a sad little cauliflower floret, this recipe stands the test of time. Yummy lavender soap. Yeah, I dig it.
Okay. This is a problem because these were super easy to make, and now I want to make more of them with different scent combinations. Ooh, maybe even adding colors, which we also have a record of in the period. I'm probably going to end up with way more soap than one little household can use in a reasonable amount of time. But unfortunately, due to stringent regulations on the sale of cosmetics in the UK and the EU, and don't get me wrong, I think the regulations are super good and super important, and I'm very glad that they exist. Nevertheless, it would cost me an absolute arm and a leg to attempt to sell any extra soaps that I make. So I'm gonna not do that. But I do have a shop where you can buy lots of other like non-cosmetic artworks that I've made, if that tickles your fancy. And I'll probably end up giving some of these soaps as gifts for friends. And there you have it. Yummy lavender soap. Oh my goodness, they smell so good. And they genuinely feel really, really nice to wash your hands with. I cannot wait to make more. But in the meantime, I'll be doing something silly over on my Patreon, who do get exclusive videos, outtakes, or extra neat things I want to film that are too niche for this already niche channel, and exclusive artwork, and a cheeky 10% discount in my shop. If you liked this video, please feel free to drop a thumbs up. Let me know what your soap scent of preference would be in the comments, and I will try really, really hard to get another video made very, very soon. Though the next one is going to be something of a research doozy, if I do say so myself. So that's going to be fun. But in the meantime, I would like to thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you have a splendid day.